عباد الله وإياي بتقوى الله أوصيكم وإياي بتقوى الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. I'm used to being censored, but I didn't think I'll be censored here before I start the khutbah, right? But alhamdulillah, technology and what we find in our technology these days. We're coming into a major election in about 11 days or so. And it seems that we have confusion, splits, debate, discussions of what we need to do as a community. And in here, participating in the political affairs is a matter of ijtihad in the current circumstances. Our classical text was speaking about Muslims being in the Muslim world, Ard al-Islam, and the non-Muslim areas in often where did not have Muslims in general. So much of the classical literature was speaking about Dar al-Islam or Dar al-Harb as a way to think of the world. But today we are in a completely different type of environment, and we have to engage in ijtihad of what we need to do in order for us to arrive at decisions individually and collectively. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Yadullahi ma'al jama'ah, that the hand of Allah, the power of Allah, the might of Allah is with the group. So we need to think in a way collectively of what not the absolute right direction to undertake, but where are we at? Now, I don't want to lie to you to say that as a collective in this country, Muslims, we have actually had a considerable failure in the lead up to the general election, because small minorities make their impact in the primaries. The general election is a little bit more difficult because the numbers of smaller group tends to get lost in the broader type of election, and especially in the presidential ticket, the top of the ticket, but down the ballot you might have some impact in various areas. Now, just to say, we have faced considerable loss in the primaries, and I think for those who observed the loss of Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, these were two major losses that we have registered facing AIPAC with its alliance with Hindutva activists and Christian evangelicals and so on. But if you look at the Jamal Bowman's election, Muslim turnout was only about 20%. Meaning in his district, a person that stepped out, that our numbers did not show up on the ballot box. And for me, that's have many different issues in there. I do believe that we are still not organized. If I pick the phone today with all of our Muslim national organizations, and I'm engaged with all of them, there is not a single point of data that somebody can tell me how many Muslims are registered to vote in this country and how many people we could guarantee to come out in particular districts and particular precincts. Election and political process is a learned science. All right? اعقل وتوكل. We don't do اعقل. We don't tie our camel Lexus or Mercedes. And we think tawakkul Allah, which is important, is sufficient. So we don't have the data and we don't have the infrastructure. So we're challenged right now in terms of what are people's positionality vis-a-vis the general election. And there's 5 choices that we're facing. Right? There's 5 choices in front of us. And again, remembering the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. Each one of you is a shepherd, and each one of you is responsible to shepherd those who are under their responsibility. And if you notice, there are some group that went and endorsed Harris. Some have went and endorsed Trump. Some are lining up with Jill Stein. And in essence, we have a broader division in there. So let me say the following. Our black brothers and sisters in this country are not going to vote Republican. You're not going to drag them into voting Republican. That's just like a fact because of history and where their experience with the Republican Party. So some of our black brothers and sisters and the imams from the black community, because of historical legacy as well as looking at their own picture, have endorsed, right, the Democratic ticket, especially Kamala Harris. And a smaller segment of the black leadership have opted to actually endorse Jill Stein and not endorse the Democratic ticket. My estimate is that the black community nationally, Muslim and otherwise, will vote between 85 to 92% will vote Democratic ticket. Again, this is because of historical legacy, civil rights movement, the Republicans' protracted anti-black policies, and so on. So that's where they are. As far as what is taking place in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and some others, our Muslim immigrant community, segments of it have endorsed Trump. And if you notice, some, especially in Michigan, are coming almost jumping and endorsing Trump and are trying to position themselves using various types of arguments. And again, the arguments that are being used, one that supposedly Trump will be anti-interventionist, that he's not going to support because he positioned himself that he's not going to be for war. He's going to bring an end to the war in the Middle East. He's possibly going to call Putin to end the Ukraine war. All right, so that's what he is selling to people. Again, that's not my position, but that's what he's selling, right? And then some from our community also are supporting Trump because he's going to cut taxes. And many of our small businesses who want to see taxes for the upper income level are favoring Trump because he's good for business, even though that he filed bankruptcy 13 times. All right? Again, if you have, I would like to see his CV, right? That he applies for a job where 13 times he filed bankruptcy and the banks and the government rescued him. But again, as they say, perception is more important than reality. So he creates the perception he's good for business. And also Elon Musk is also presenting himself that he's successful in business, right? Now I need to tell you, every time you see Elon Musk being increased in wealth, you need to thank yourself. Because the only way that he actually makes money on Tesla is because every car he sells, he gets $7,500 subsidy from the government. We all understand that, right? Which means he always trying to insist to maintain that subsidy to make $7,500 from each car, as well as the subsidy for the solar panels. MashaAllah, he's anti-welfare for the poor, but he is for welfare for the rich. Right? That's what we're dealing with. But people, again, go by the perception. Right? The perception is that he's successful, he's going to be better for business, so people are lining up in there, and some of our brothers and sisters are endorsing Trump based on perception he's going to end the wars. And I want to tell you that one of the biggest donor for Trump is Miriam Adelson. Miriam Adelson is saying to Trump, he committed $100 million on the condition that he will annex the West Bank to Israel. So he might end the war, but it will be ending the war by actually allowing Israel further wiping out the Palestinians. Right? So that's again where Trump is at. The third choice that people are lining up is Jill Stein. And I know that they're having an event tonight in here because she spoke on genocide, she spoke on Palestine. They have a strong environmental policy record and also social justice. But also we have a critique from our community because of her position on Syria in the past in terms of lining up and supporting the Assad regime. So there is some issues in there. And the bigger challenge overall, that no third party have ever been able to get the 5% threshold on a national level. The last time was Ross Perot, who ran independent and was able to get a substantial vote after spending $300 million just to get into the mix, and he was seen as aligned with the segment of the right wing. So that's the threshold, and I know that large segment of our community in different parts of, again, looking at the data that came out of CARE, data came out of ISPU, it's about almost half and half where people are lining up in terms of supporting Jill Stein. The fourth option is actually not to vote for the president, leave it blank, or write your name, or write Gaza, or write Palestine, and to vote the rest of the ticket. Whether it's Democrat, mostly people are going to vote down the line Democrat, but there are certain areas where there are people who are aligned with the Republicans on certain issues in different states. So that's a fourth option that people have. The last option is not to vote at all. And there are people saying, I'm not going to vote because I'm protesting. Right? The political system is beyond repair because we have the best political system that money can buy. The more money you have, the more democracy you could enjoy. And it's a competition between billionaires. I know that we could compete in the 100,000 game. Again, not that I encourage you to play poker. I don't. But in essence, poker is organized on different table sizes in terms of money, right? So we have the dime, we have the nickel, we have the dollar, the $100, the 100,000, the million, and the billion. We are right now a political system managed by the billion tables. Sheldon Adelson, Hatem Bazian, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, right? These are the people that can muscle more of their vote, right? Because they could purchase other people's vote by means of advertisement. Bill Gates just put 50 million in Harris's pot. Mary Adelson, 100 million. Elon Musk is 100 million and actually promising people to give $1 million if you vote, right? So that's a political game. If you don't have votes, you go and purchase votes by means of massive amount of money. So that's the 5 options that we see, right, in relations to us, which leaves us in a major crisis of how to express our values, how to make political changes in the society. And I know that there are some segment that wants to be like the Amish, and I respect that. meaning I just want to disconnect. Right? Again, just to understand, if you pay taxes, you already are consenting to the system one way or the other. You're just choosing not to tell the system what to make of your money. That's all. So if you want to be completely disconnected, I respect that in terms of where you are. But how for you to make the most ethical, moral choice that aligns with your values? And knowing that politics is a contact sport, meaning that you have to make decisions, and sometimes these decisions are difficult for you to undertake. We are facing a genocide. We are facing also constant interventions in the Muslim world. If you did not get the news over the last 30 years, I don't know if I could render those news to you. If you are watching Sudan, if you're watching Congo, if you're watching Yemen, Somalia, Iraq, Syria, Palestine, Kashmir, Burma, you name it. And I'm getting also daily news from India with the Hindutva people attacking Muslims almost daily basis, demolishing homes, demolishing businesses, attacking people. So that's where we are. What role do we have in this country? And that's the big question. And I would say, and I'll argue with you, that one, we need to be organized as a community. And I said at the beginning, Yadullahi ma'al jama'a. I don't feel we have a jama'a among the Muslims. We are not a collectivity. We're successful individually, but we're not collectively successful. You cannot build a building if one is going right, the other going left, somebody going up, somebody going down. متى يبلغ البنيان أشده إذا كنت تبنيه وغيرك يهدمه. When will a building reaches its pinnacle if you're building from one side and somebody is knocking it from the other side? So we don't have a collectivity. We have managed to do individual success, but we have not managed to figure out collective success. So that's one. Second, we don't have strategic institutions. And again, I am doing my best, just to give you what's on my agenda. I chair the Muslim Legal Fund of America. I chair the American Muslims for Palestine. I founded the Palestine Center for Public Policy. I chair the Islamophobia Studies Center, and I edit the journal, 2 volumes a year, which 8 to 10 different volumes. Right? So I individually can change, even though I am doing my maximum. What we need to figure out how to create successful institutions that actually can think strategically. And strategically is not only to look at your feet and look at the person in front of you, but to think 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan. You're not going to do APAC or Moody Hundudva by one election or one event or one protest. And I know we're successful emotional mobilization, but we're not successful in strategic mobilization. So building institutions based on strategic vision and strategic investment in a way for us to change where we are at. Think of your children down the line. What positionality you want them to have. Third, we need to actually come up with resources, with a strategic deployment of those resources. And I actually had somebody right now who's trying to figure out how much the community nationally invested in this election cycle, and to measure what are the return on this investment. Because again, Einstein says the definition of insanity is to do the thing over and over and expect different results. So we do have deployment of resources, but the resources are not actually situated to strategically move our position forward over a long period of time. So if we spend 10 million, 15, 20, 30 million, whatever it is, we have to correspond. What is the return? Many of you are in corporate positions, right? If you're in sales, what's your X in investment? How much you return? If we put you out in the market, what is the return that you're bringing in? So what is the return for us? So we need to figure out that investment, and then to build that investment into a waqf type of investment. When you talk about APAC, you talk about some of our opposition, they're sitting on a $20 billion endowment. That's what you're facing. And until we are able to begin to think in those terms for the long period of time, then the results will be continuing to be the same, where we feel disappointed because we are only running literally not even on one cylinder, is really minus cylinder. Because the cylinder that we built was completely not situated to the battle or the struggle and the challenge that you are facing. And the challenges are going to continue, all right, unfolding in front of us. So now we have not only the genocide, but thinking of what is ahead of us, it's far more damaging and complex. And what we need is to understand and relate to these ways in order to effect change. Change, if you don't plan for change, the change will always happen, but it could be changing you rather than you actually be the instrument of change that you are seeking. I do believe that the community in here have a purpose to make transformative change. And that's where we need to think about our collective mind. I do believe that we have one of the most talented communities in the world. You're the best and the brightest across the world here. Like the brain drain that was brought from the Muslim world is here in the United States. I just think about, I think in this mosque alone, about 600 PhDs, give or take. All right? So the best, that will be the intellectual class in any country. So we can't actually say, well, somebody else, this is it, we're here. And no one, you or your children and grandchildren are leaving this place. Right? That's the reality. I know that's even in the beginning of the 1900s, people, I'm going to come to America, collect a few dollars from the trees, and go back to my village. Right? That was like in the 1900s. There was a BBC just documentary 4 days ago. The early arrivals, Muslims in the Dakotas, said they're going to be here for a few years to collect money from the trees because it was growing on trees at that time. Right? And they're going to come back, and that's it. Right? They built the mosque. The mosque was demolished in 1973. And the community went all over the place, and that's in the Dakotas. And now there's no Muslims in the Dakotas because they all went throughout the place. So the home that you hope to go back to is not there. And you need to plan for next generations. And I do think that we have some deep thinking and deep planning to understand. If you don't plan, then you basically are just going all over without any purpose. And I do think that we have the capacity to do so. استغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونتوب إليه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. The last point I want to say is that don't make people's choices in their political engagement a cause for conflict inside the community. Whatever people's decision in the 5 choices that I highlighted, don't go around and try to fight with people to say that your choice is the correct choice, not that there isn't a correct choice or not. Don't make the choices that are arising because we don't have a unified process to do so to be the cause of actually splitting the community in every corner, every neighborhood, that will end up actually having far-reaching consequences. So just to understand that it's an ijtihadi matter, there's definitely what you call some better choices than some of the choices, but don't make the choices that people are undertaking as the cause for splitting individuals in the community, because again, we don't have any unified position right now as a community. Even though I would say 80% of the community is on one side, you still have 20% of the community, especially in particular the Black community is definitely, their positionality has been almost permanent in relations to voting for the Democrats. And then some of our brothers who are opting to go with Trump is very, very problematic, but they've been sold and getting the perception. And again, more men are opting for Trump. I don't know what they see, because they think that the more insulting you are, the more manly you are. I don't know which tradition they've been reading, right, in terms of what Islamic values is all about. So again, this is my own perspective, just to make sure that you don't end up in internal fights about the political process, and go back and let's plan, because we have to plan for the long term, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم إني داع فأمنوا اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا بالخير شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي بالخير ولا يقضى عليك وإنه لا يذل من وليت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت ربنا ردنا الإسلام ردا جميلا ربنا ردنا الإسلام ردا جميلا ربنا ردنا الإسلام ردا جميلا اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على طاعتك اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه يا رب العالمين اللهم ارحم المسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات يا رب العالمين اللهم اشف مرضى المسلمين جميعا يا رب العالمين اللهم خفف عنهم اللهم خفف عنهم اللهم خفف عنهم يا رب العالمين اللهم انصر إخواننا المسلمين في غزة يا رب العالمين اللهم أيدهم بنصر من عندك يا رب العالمين اللهم أيدهم بنصر من عندك يا رب العالمين اللهم خفف عنهم ما يعانون به يا رب العالمين اللهم اطعمهم واسقهم يا رب العالمين اللهم إنا مغلوبون فانصرنا اللهم إنا مغلوبون فانصرنا اللهم إنا مغلوبون فانصرنا وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون